make sure you got your safety goggles on. You know, always important to be safe. I mean, don't put them on your eyes. The goggles, they do nothing. But, you know, as long as you wear them, you'll feel a little bit safer. The trick is, as long as the explosions are only on the bottom part of your rocket, you're doing okay. But this is Kerbal, and things probably aren't going to work out that way. So we'll see what goes on here. We're playing Kerbal version 1.2. We have, up until now, in this career mode, been playing entirely modless. I have, now that 1.2 is officially out and some of the mods have been updated, I have gone and added Kerbal alarm clock back in because it's handy to be able to set timers to like stop time warps and things like that. And the other one that I put back in is MechJeb so that we can once again get some calculations for some delta V's, which is really handy. Also at this point, I mean, we've progressed pretty far. We're like very close to the end of the tech tree, although these techs are very expensive, so it'll take a while to finish them up. But we've got most of our stuff in here. Yoko Finn, hey, let me read your messages in a second. Train of thought. Yes, so, with MechJeb in there, we might do something like do some hands-off lift-off. MechJeb, I always tune it to be very, very safe, so it's not as fuel-efficient as my own sense, but it's a little less fiddly, and then I can watch the chat a little bit more. Got our first tip of the day, and from Yukofin, who sends a message, drinks on me, Quill18. Yeah, there will definitely be a little bit of that. I've got I can't decide, and won't know where we'll go when it gets, especially multiplayer portion of the stream. Usually we just relax and have some fun. Got some beer in the fridge upstairs, so we might crack into one of those, or I have a very, very nice bottle of scotch, which I've kind of never tried before. Well, not this exact type, so we'll see exactly how it goes. But for now, we're going to Kerbal, and this is rocket science, so we're going to do it only with the aid of caffeine. Thanks for everyone who's subbing. You guys are going cray. Kamikaze pilots used goggles so they would hit better. You know, safety first, right? Don't drink in space. That's right. So let's go and take a look and recap a little bit at this point. This version 1.2 does, of course, introduce the satellite network for your ships. You've got a comm network. You've got the KerbNet. Very exciting stuff. In here, the screen can look a little bit cluttered, but you can always just turn that off and get the old screen back. We've got a handful of satellites, of course, which is why we have so many of these things buzzing around. And we've got plenty of ground stations, but we also have some satellites that are in orbit. We also have 3 manned missions currently going on. Sorry. Yeah, no, 3, yes. Oh, I gotta change the symbol for Moon Station Alpha. Let me do that now while I'm thinking about it. Whoa, that's... interesting. I think we can change the name in the mission. I don't remember if we changed the symbol. There we go. Don't I change the symbol over here? I thought I used to. Alright, it's fine. We won't worry about it. Oh, I want to change the symbol to the space station symbol, but maybe I do that in the mission after all. First, I want to go and let's go and take a look at our Duna lander. Hashtag save Bob over here. How much does 1.2 network differ from remote tech? So it's a little bit more lightweight. By default, it won't cut off your signal the same way like your unmanned probes. There's an option to turn on whether it does. If you've got the harder option on, then it's not that you don't have any control over your probe. You can't set maneuver nodes, and you can't steer, and you can't throttle other than full throttle or no throttle at all. It does mean that if you sort of pre-aim your ship before you lose contact, you can still do a full thrust to, say, complete a maneuver or something like that. It's not programmable. Remote tech has like a hard cutoff because it also includes a programmable flight computer. Since there's no programmable flight computer in vanilla Kerbal, instead they've got this one sort of semi-halfway, but mostly when you don't have a signal going on on your satellite, you basically, in your probe, you basically can't do anything with it. So in that, it's pretty representative. You don't have to set up, you don't have to ever aim the satellites. The antennas, there are 2 types. There's a normal type, which you can't bounce signals off of, and there's a relay type, which will bounce signals through it, and therefore extend your range of your network, but you never have to point them at other satellites. So it's a little simpler, but pretty clean, and I don't know, quite happy with it. So this is Duna. And Duna is Duna, we landed a mission here really early on. It was quite outstanding. We landed a ship on Duna with no mods. Nothing to calculate delta V, nothing to help us perform maneuvers in any way whatsoever. We had to intercept Duna, a whole other planet. It's basically Mars. Basically, you know, seat of our pants, back of the napkin calculation. But we got there. Bob is here. Bob made a lot of science here, and this was never designed to come home. You notice there's no engines on this whatsoever. We landed entirely via parachutes. And so Bob is stranded on Duna, which was always the plan. We didn't tell him, but was always the plan. One day, maybe we'll go and rescue him, but I don't think today would be that day. We've got other things to do, but one day we will definitely go and rescue Bob. Absolutely, I guarantee. So yeah, so there's that. Any spice on that planet? Spice must flow, that is true. Oh, you know what I just realized? I have my sound turned off in the game. Or did I? Volume mixer. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Let's turn on the sound in the game again. So the other thing we've got going on is we do have a space station orbiting around the moon. It's just the start of a space station, and that's probably we're going to look at improving a little bit further today. So this is our initial space station. Just got a handful of people on here, and it does have a science lab, and its job will be to process science. I want this to be sort of a way station where we're going to have two sets of missions that go down to the moon. One is going to be a science ship that's going to land on the moon, collect science, fly back up here, and transfer the science into the lab for further processing so we can get a lot more tech. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to eventually set up a mining station on the ground that will mine ore, convert it into fuel, and then bring it up here so that our science ship can keep refueling. Now, as is, we don't have quite enough science to get all the parts that I really want for the moon base, so we may not do that this episode. However, we will probably send in some sort of a refueling thing. We have a little bit of extra fuel left in here, which is important because I guess I could have switched just from the map. I probably didn't have to go back to the space station over here. Because if you go to the tracking station, is that something about Bob and RimWorld that I scrolled too fast. This is how, like, Bob created RimWorld or something of that nature. Oh, there. And this is how Bob ended up in a RimWorld colony. That makes a lot of sense to me. What about making a relay satellite with a high polar orbit around Kerbal? We do, sort of. We've got this one. It's not circular because this was actually a mission, but I believe, yeah, this is, okay, in between the last time we played in this one, I did do 2 extra satellite missions, because they're not very interesting to show, just for some cash. One of it was setting up this one here. This is a relay satellite in polar orbit around Kerbal, and another one was a satellite, I believe, around Minmus over here. So we've got a little bit more of a relay network kicking around. So anyway, the other thing we're doing is we actually have, this is what we did at the end of last episode. Well, not quite at the end. The end of last episode was trying to configure the ships for the next thing and realizing we had no money. But here what we have is a currently unmanned vessel that is orbiting the moon, and its job is going to be to dock with our space station. And that's the thing we're going to do first over here. We don't have a ton of fuel. We're about halfway on our tanks right now. The idea is these tanks are hopefully, and again, we didn't have the math at the time, but I think these tanks are enough to land on the moon and get back. We don't know, otherwise we may have misdesigned something and maybe we'll have to go and send a different one, but this will be the lander. However, right now, it is only a probe core. It is unmanned, and it doesn't have enough fuel for the whole thing right now, because it's only about half full. Our first mission will be to rendezvous with Moon Station Alpha over here, and dock with it. Right now, we are in a circular orbit below this, and what we're going to do is we're going to meet up. Now, I do have MechJeb, so we could use it to plan the maneuver, but I'm going to go and try to do this. I believe we're going to need to accelerate time a fair bit over here before we get there, because Moon Station's Alpha is in a higher orbit than we are, so we are in a lower orbit, which means we orbit faster, right? So we're going to approach. With every spin, we're going to get closer and closer, and at some point, we're going to be able to do... Oh yeah, I can't do a maneuver right now because we actually don't have a signal connection. I may have to get extra satellites around here to make this plan. But yeah, you can't even start planning the maneuver while you have no signal. As soon as I hit, there we go. Apparently we can clip through the moon just a little bit. So we can see what happens if we were to try to plan a maneuver over here. Do we get a contact? No, we don't. I can try to wiggle woggle a little bit forward. We can move it around, but yeah, we're not anywhere close to getting an encounter at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel, and I'm just gonna keep time warping here. We can only time warp so fast. It actually might be better if I went to the tracking station, because we could accelerate time faster than we're allowed to do here. And in fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the tracking station. I'll accelerate time from there. We'll catch up a little bit, and then we'll plan out our maneuvers. So I want to focus on, what am I looking for? Oh, Lander 2 over here. And we're in time warp. And because I'm not actually controlling the ship, I'll be able to go faster than times 50. I don't want to go too fast. Whoop. I think we're still going to need a little bit more than this. Alright, that might start to work. So let me go ahead and fly Lander 2. Yes, there is the next orbit button on the maneuver node as well, but I find it really like tricksy and hard to use. We may end up using it here. So let's say we're to try to plan a maneuver here to burn. Okay. So you can see the orange bars over here. By the way, when you're on the Kerbal main menu in 1.2, go into the settings there. You'll look for an option where it always shows the closest approach to your target. Because normally it would only show it if your orbit sort of crossed and if you got close. And it's much, much handier to be able to always see them. There we go. And you can see here, if I delay my burn to back here, there we go. We'll get quite close and I'll burn for a little bit more. Maybe a little bit less. Now, okay, that's going to be a pretty damn close approach. We'll be separated by 7.8 kilometers, which ain't bad. But note the burn will be on the far side of the moon. We won't have a signal to the KSC here. Although, you know what? We're close enough. The Moon Station Alpha does have a relay signal, so as long as we're within line of sight of this, we will have a connection. But I was going to say, that's all right, because, again, what I can do here is I am allowed to point to the maneuver node. And then I got to worry about power as well, especially for where's the sun? Okay, it's there. And if I just rotate, I'll make sure to keep one solar panel facing correctly. Okay, there we go. So I'm pointing to the maneuver node. When we get close, I will burn. It's a 17.7 meter per second burn. That's actually really small. I'm tempted to derate my engine here so that we don't burn quite as much. I'm going to try to hit 40%. And 40%. That'll allow me to tune a little bit more here, because that is a very, very small burn. We're about to do a big time warp, but it's an important one. Always make sure to quick save before you do that, because it's very easy to accidentally overshoot the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to warp to here. So yeah, like with every orbit, we're getting slightly closer and closer, and eventually we would pass it. And what we're doing, and it's a little counterintuitive some of the time, but what we're going to do here is we are going to burn prograde, which is going to raise our orbit. Technically, that would slow us down, but half our orbit is still shorter, so that's okay. All right, still looking okay. We'll warp a little bit closer. Solar power is good. Clearly, our signal is good. Actually, even then, we don't have a signal to the KSC as is. Look how dangerous this was for a second. Our signal bounces to Moon Station Alpha, which bounces the signal off my satellite in orbit around Minmus. I forgot. Of course, I was thinking, oh, I have a connection to the space station. We can control from there. But that's not how it works. That was something you could do in remote tech. There was a component you could add to a ship to give you another place to control from, and mostly it was a way to cancel out lag. But yeah, I forgot that wouldn't be the case over here. In any case, we're approaching the node. It is going to be a very short burn. Hopefully we don't lose the connection, but it doesn't matter. I am facing the correct way already, and I can still go to a full burn. Even if you lose a connection, I might not be able to do anything else, but I can still go to a full burn here, and I'm mostly facing the correct direction. So we're going to hit the node in about 30 seconds. I'm going to start testing the burn around 10 seconds out, but no, I mean 5 seconds out. This is going to be so short. Let's time warp a little bit and stop, and actually quick save before I accidentally time warp too much because I'm impatient. Okay, node in 7, 6, 5. I'm going to go for the burn. Yeah, and we definitely burned a little too soon, but that's okay. All right. So I'm going to cancel the rest of the maneuver here because I didn't execute it with particular precision. But no, it looks like we're going to come within 7.4 kilometers over here. That's not bad. Good idea for the future might be set up a refuel station in high Kerbal orbit. Oh, that's true, actually. That's true. Normally, in fact, I have tried to do that before, but here we're setting up a first station around the moon, which is interesting and different. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to coast until we're close. Again, hold on. Quick save before we do a big time warp. We're going to coast until we're close. I'm going to switch my nav ball over here to targeting mode over here. So now retrograde and prograde represents the speed relative to the craft I am targeting. Right? So if I were to get my relative speed to the target, notice how it's dropping as we're getting closer and closer here. If I get my relative speed to the target to be 0, that means we'll be in exactly the same orbit. Well, ish. I'm still a little bit lower, but that's okay. I am lower. I'm still going a little bit faster. What I think I'm going to do to start off with here is I'm just going to turn around, and at some point I will find the targeting node. Where the hell? What am I looking for? Oh, it was down here, wasn't it? I'm being in derp. There we go. That is the direction to point in if I want to burn directly towards my target, which is what I'm going to start with. I don't suppose... Yeah, there you go. I can see you. Lovely. So I'm going to start by doing a burn directly to my target. And when you burn, you're pulling your prograde marker. So by doing this, a little bit more, I'm now moving directly towards the target at 58 meters per second. I'm now going to turn retrograde, and I'm going to let the distance close. Now, at some point, I'll just fly by this thing at 58 meters per second. Doesn't mean I have to use 58 meters per second delta V to arrest that. The slower you do it, the better. But the problem is I was quite far away. Now look at the intersection is going to come over here. Within 0.1 kilometers of separation over here now. Excellent. Basically, what I was doing is a radial burn over here relative to the moon to intersect the orbit over there. Because I was basically just underneath this thing. What I did is almost exactly the same as a radial burn to fine-tune my orbit. But you can, as long as you're close, you can actually get like 99% of the correct maneuver simply by pointing towards your target and burning that way. So my prograde marker is still, well, I'm looking at the retrograde side, but my retrograde marker in yellow is on top of the, it's very hard to see, but the pink sort of like anti-target direction, which means it's correct. My prograde marker on the other side of the nav ball is on top of the marker that shows me what direction my target is in, so I'm still heading that direction. As we get a little closer, and as our orbits diverge just a scooch, you can see there's a little bit of drift here. I can help correct that. On this side, what you do is you push your retrograde marker. So I'm going to push the retrograde marker back on top of the pink thing. And I want to do it this way because it's helping me slow down a little bit along the way. So we're still going to close. I'm going to go ahead and quick save and time warp a little bit. All right, excellent. Now, I'm just going to lock myself to retrograde in general and just burn off as much as possible to stop my relative speed. So now that I'm getting very close to my target, and our relative speed is almost nothing, our orbits are almost identical, which is great. So now all I have to do is actually dock this sucker. So I'm going to make sure that I'm controlling from the frontmost clampetron. It's not going to make much of a difference in this particular context, but sometimes it does, especially if your clamp's not on the front, if it's on the side. It's actually considerably more important, say, for your target. I'm going to reset my target to be the actual clamp over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to burn. This is actually a little bit of an eyeball burn here. This way. And then, that was too powerful. I'm going to have to derate my engine some more. That was far too powerful. Alright, stop all my relative motion. Now, I don't remember, do I have RCS on this? I do. Okay, that'll make our maneuvers a little bit easier. So let me go and give it a little bit of this. Now, often I have an extra navball mod that adds a marker that shows my relative orientation. It shows if I'm facing the same way as my target, or the opposite way, depending on how you want to look at it over here for the docking clamp. I don't have that right now, which is a little bit annoying. But my ultimate goal is going to be so that it looks like I'm vaguely lined up appropriately for the target. And on top of that, the prograde marker is on top of the target marker, which means if the prograde marker is on top of the target marker, I'm moving directly towards my target. But what I want to do first is set it up so that when we do that, we'll be coming on a little bit more level rather than hitting it sort of sideways. Docking clamps do a pretty good job of locking you in. God damn, that is... Yeah, I gotta definitely tile that down. mostly okay here. All right, so now I'm heading directly towards the docking clamp. I'm going to do one more burn this way, just to try to end up a little bit more aligned. So there, I'm not actually moving directly towards the docking clamp right now, but this should enable a little bit more alignment. And at some point very soon, I'm going to want to do these maneuvers with RCS instead. Okay, and quickly turn around. Just going to try to halt here before we get too close, because this is definitely too close. That is very close. Okay. And do this. Turn on the RCS. Now, there is a whole other mode that you could use to steer. But, oops, that's not the button I want. But I'm instead going to change my keys. What is it? N to go backwards? Yes. N to go backwards. H goes forward. Perfect. And then IJK. So you can see here, I'm currently drifting away. So I want to be moving towards this. And now I'm just going to be using my IJK to move my prograde to be lined up. So I'm coming in diagonally, which is not what I was looking to do. Just going to slow myself down a little bit. Coming in a bit sideways, but you can see I'm keeping my prograde and target marker. Yeah, we came in a little too much at an angle, but it might still marry up not too bad. I'm actually pushing. There we go. Whoops, don't hit him. This is so much easier when you've got the alignment marker. Let me back up and try this properly again. And I'm going to switch over to the other vessel and make sure to turn on its SAS for a second to get it to stop rotating. Okay, let me switch back over here. So let me orientate myself correctly. Doesn't help that I'm actually upside down based on my relative. There we go. Now move up. It also won't help if your RCS is not completely lined up, because what will happen, there we go. I guess I want to point to this now. Well, no, that's not true. I was correct a second ago. There you go. If your RCS is not exactly lined up with your center of mass, you can end up rotating in a slightly unexpected way. All right, I'm liking this. Just going to let myself drift a little bit more. Then I'm going to get my prograde back in the middle. There we go. There we go. This should be fine. So again, we're slightly unaligned, but this is going to be close enough that it should be okay. I should have been a little bit more explicit with my alignment first, but this should be fine. Thump. There you go. You can see when it gets close, it like magnetically enclamps. Okay, that's great. We are now docked. What I can do is transfer someone to here, a pilot or a scientist. Either way, it doesn't really matter too much. But also what I can do is click on these tanks and say, out from here and here. We're going to pump all the fuel out of the space station into my lander. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to completely fill it up. More intense than the interstellar docking scene. Yeah, docking is one of the... I actually quite like docking a lot, but when you're out of practice for a bit, and without the alignment indicator, it's really easy when you've got the alignment indicator, because as is, you got to keep rotating the screen and be like, am I lined up? You can't really tell. We're just having that one little indicator that confirms that you're pointing the same way. Makes these maneuvers super easy. All right, so we've got a full tank of gas now. I have no idea if it's enough, but we do have a full tank of gas. We haven't accidentally knocked our satellite out of orbit, so that's good. I'm going to grab the pilot. Jebediah. Jebediah is going to make this landing over here. So for this, I can click the crew hatch. Oops, he's in the copula over here. There we go. We're going to transfer Jebediah into the lander can. Excellent. Quick save. We are now going to decouple. All right, and oh, I didn't transfer my my mono propellant. Oh, I still have lots. Okay, that's good. So, speaking of monopropellant, I'm going to go ahead and push myself a little further away. And then we're going to have to choose where we land. So we got, how come I don't have a full tank of gas? Did I empty this, but it wasn't enough to fill? I thought it did. Oh, because I have more tanks! Whoops.